You're listening to the Cryptid Crew Podcast. I'm your host, Mark Childers. Before we get started, if you've had an encounter or an experience or just something unexplained, click on the link tree in the description and share your encounter. Thank you for listening to the Cryptid Crew Podcast.
The scream went for 3-4 seconds, and I know that when you're out in the woods, if you encounter a predator or anything, the last thing that you want to do is run.
You knew you weren't alone. Something was there, and I can't explain that.
I've never in my life heard anything like what I heard that night.
On this episode of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, I have the pleasure of introducing not only my first guest on this podcast, but professor, author, and folklorist, Dr. Alan Brown. Dr. Brown, so good to have you back on the show.
Well, I'm happy to be back.
It's good to talk to you. Hope you've been doing well.
I have. Have you?
Yes, pretty good. Trying to stay busy and enjoying the beginning of fall weather, which I have been looking forward to.
Yes, me too.
Like I said, Dr. Brown was on the first podcast I had. He was my very first guest a year ago, so it's the 1-year anniversary of the Cryptid Crew Podcast, and I've been really looking forward to this episode. And if the listeners are not familiar with Dr. Brown, he has written many books. Eerie, Alabama is what we talked about on the first episode, which has different tales, stories, and legends of Alabama and from north to south. But what has intrigued me was your Haunted series, book Haunted Pensacola.
Okay. Yeah, it's one of my favorite books, by the way. I really enjoyed writing it and going down there and talking to people. That was fun.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot of history in Pensacola, a lot of violent history, dark history that people really don't know about.
Yeah. In fact, it goes way back to the founding of Pensacola, where there was, it was founded by the Spanish on August 15, 1559, but it was wiped out by a hurricane, and then the Spanish came back, but then they had problems with other countries trying to take it over, and then you have the Civil War. I mean, just a lot of violence that went on in the 1700s, 1800s, and it continued well into the 20th century.
Yes, no doubt. From pirates to slavery to yellow fever, and even hurricanes, like you have mentioned.
Yeah. Yellow fever, especially, that really decimated the city. It had a huge impact on the town and on its folklore, too.
There's just, a lot of people think of it as these beautiful beaches, which they do have. But like you said, there's so much mystery and history to the city. It's got a little bit of a dark and eerie side to it. And one of the places that I was going to get you to start out about, if you can, is the Arbona House that is in Pensacola. That was a saloon, a grocery store at one time. And the owner, or one of the owners of the house, had a eerie past there with murder and divorce and eventually suicide.
He definitely left his imprint on the building. Taps went there a few years ago and investigated it and determined that it was haunted, probably by him. He was a very angry man and violent man, and who left his house to his family, but then when he came back, he wanted it back again. And just a very complicated man. Well, another thing that's interesting about the Arbona House is that a skeleton was found in the floor while they were renovating it a few years back. So that's an episode, Violent episode, that we really don't know much about.
They found some type of markings around the ribs, where it seemed like a stab wound, possibly.
Yes, yeah. I love stories like that, though, where bones are found in an old house, and then they have to try to go back and figure out what happened. And it takes detective work to do that. And sometimes the mystery solved, and sometimes it isn't. I don't think it is solved here.
Right. Yeah, I don't believe that was ever solved, if I'm not mistaken. Let me ask you this, Dr. Brown, what is one of your favorite houses or stories from Pensacola?
Well, I've got several. The story of Christ Church, Old Christ Church, is fascinating. It was the first Protestant church in Pensacola, and there were 3 rectors there over the years, and they were buried underneath the floor of the church. Well, during the Civil War, Union soldiers looted the church, dug up the bodies, and scattered the bones everywhere. Well, they were reburied outside of the church, but no one really knew where they were. So in the 1980s, some university students located the burial site, and they were still in their coffins, but the bones had been desecrated, and so they decided that they would rebury them inside the church. And they had a ceremony where they were actually carried these coffins down the street to the church, and one of the young men involved in it looked in the crowd, and he saw 3 men dressed in black robes with bare feet. And he determined, he talked to people about it, and he said that is the way the rectors dressed at the time. So the ghosts of the rectors were present at their own reburial inside the church. That's something you just can't make up. That's, yeah. And then they, before they reburied them, they took the coffins to the Lear Rochebleu house in Pensacola, and they set them on a table and locked the door. Well, when the students came back, the bones are scattered everywhere, and there is no way anyone could have broken in and have done that. So there's another mystery, paranormal mystery, that probably will never be answered.
Yeah, if no one broke in the house, and then how else do you explain that?
Well, I have an explanation, but probably not the right one. But when the house is being repainted, a painter was looking through one of the windows on the second floor, and he saw a young woman dancing by herself, and she was transparent. And it's possible that maybe she didn't want all those bones in her house. Again, I don't really know the explanation for it.
And he was on the second floor when he saw
he was outside,
right,
standing on a ladder, looking inside, right. And he saw her dancing around. And probably the daughter of the owner of the house was said to be a violent man, a sea-faring man.
Very interesting. Yeah, I probably would have gotten down that ladder in record time.
Yeah. Oh, there's so many other stories there that the Civil War forts have interesting histories. There's Fort Barrancas, which was used as a quarantine for soldiers who had yellow fever. But then you had Fort Pickens, which was one of 4 forts guarding Pensacola Bay. Fort Pickens, in 1886, it was where Geronimo and 15 of his warriors were kept. And they made campfires out in the grass area in the middle of the fort, and spent their time digging up weeds and digging up cactus, and the warden of the fort even allowed townspeople to come in and look at them and talk to them. Well, the flickering light of their campfires is still seen inside the fort. And that's a story most people don't know, that here you have a Civil War era brick and masonry fort that was actually used as a prison for Apache Indians. And this is something else about this subject, which is that if you're really interested in the paranormal, you get into history. You can't avoid it. You have to. And I've always loved history, and this makes history even more fun for me to have the paranormal dimension added to it.
Yes, and that's so neat that you have such a legendary figure in the Native American history as someone like Geronimo to be kept there. I have also read about Fort Pickens of families going through like on a tour of some sort and getting dizzy or feeling lightheaded while on the tour. So much that went on in that area, and that time period.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's, and there has to be some kind of psychic residue in a fort that was the scene of so much violence. And it's not uncommon at all for people to have experiences in these places. And sometimes the historians will tell the ghost stories and sometimes they won't. But the historians at Fort Pickens did when I was there. And I was grateful for that. that they see the value of these stories, which keep people interested in the historic sites and make them want to go there.
Yeah, there's a lot of violent history there.
Oh yeah. Yeah, there sure is. And a lot of the haunted places in Pensacola are privately owned homes. A good example is the Noble House, which was built in 1905 by an ex-Confederate soldier. It's now a bed and breakfast. And my wife and I stayed there. And we stayed in a room on the second floor, primarily because we had heard, or I had heard, that there was a woman who stayed in that same room, and when she was in the bathroom, she smelled smoke. Well, she notified the owner of the house, and she went up there, and they couldn't find anything. Well, my wife and I were up there, and I told her about it, and I was sitting outside in the main room reading, and she said she smelled smoke. And my wife is my ghost magnet. I really think that she is a sensitive to the spirit world, and she smelled it. And if she said it, I believe her. But we talked to the owner, who said that some workmen who were there smelled. They described it as apple tobacco. I didn't know there was such a thing, but that's what they smelled there. So this just shows that some ghosts don't always reveal themselves visually, that sometimes they do it through the other senses, like smell. And in this case, I believe that they did.
Interesting. Could be like a cigar, possibly cigar type smell or pipe.
Possibly, yeah. Yeah, lots of men smoked back then, so it certainly is possible. Yeah.
Well, tell me, Dr. Brown, about any, and we'll get back into some of the haunted Pensacola, but tell us about any personal experiences that you have had yourself.
Okay. I'm from Mississippi, and I have connections with the local radio show, one of the local radio shows in town, and they decided that they wanted to go to a haunted mansion in Natchez called the Magnolia House, and they partnered with a radio show from Louisiana. So we had maybe 10, 12 people that went there, and we had a psychic on the telephone who said we were all sitting in the main room and we had her on speakerphone, and she said that the daughter of the owner of the house, whose name was Mr. Henderson, said that she was going to play piano. So we sat there, and after about a minute, we heard 2 or 3 keys on the piano plink. Well, several of us jumped up, ran over to the piano. There was nobody there. That was freaky. And I have no explanation for that. And ghosts don't normally perform on cue, but apparently in that case they did. And that's also significant because there were 12 people in the room and they all heard it.
Yeah, not just, you had multiple witnesses.
Multiple, yes. And when you can collaborate those kinds of things, that's always meaningful. I had another personal experience about 10 years ago in Key West. My wife and I stayed at the artist's house, one of the maybe the most beautiful house in Key West, certainly the most photographed house. And there was a little boy there named Eugene Otto who grew up to be an artist, which is why they call it the artist house. And his parents doted on him and gave him everything he wanted. Well, my wife and I had been walking around Key West all day, and we were hot and tired. And so we came back and we went to bed early. And next morning, I woke up and I asked my wife if anything happened to her during the night, because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen to her. She said yes. I said, okay, what happened? She said, well, while I was asleep, the door opened, and she said she heard footsteps. Couldn't really see anybody, but heard footsteps. And then she said, since it was a hot day, she had her feet sticking out from under the covers. Somebody came and pulled the covers over her feet and then left and shut the door. Well, I was pretty freaked out by that. And so I wanted to look around the room. And so I reached over to the nightstand to get my glasses. That's why I always put them when I stay in a hotel or bed and breakfast. They were gone. And I could not find them. I looked all over that room. Finally, I'm going to get dressed, and then I'm going to look again. So I picked up my suitcase, and my glasses were under the suitcase. I would never have put them there. My wife wouldn't have put them there. And we talked to the concierge, who told us that other people have had things happen in that room, and they think it's the mother of the little boy who is very protective. And I had something else about that little boy. He had a doll, 4-foot doll, that his Caribbean babysitter made for him that he called Robert. And then he complained after about a week that Robert the doll was walking around at night, trashing his room. They finally stuck him up in the attic. And you can see Robert to this day. He's in a Civil War fort called the Fort East Martello in Key West. They've got him in a glass case. You have to ask him for your permission to take his picture, because if you don't, bad things will happen to you. And there are all of these letters from people to Robert apologizing for not asking for his permission to take his picture because they got divorced or they broke their legs or they lost their job or they got COVID or all these terrible things. And Robert is the inspiration for a movie, I guess, fandom, called Chucky. So that's where Chucky comes from, Robert the doll.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And I'm going to go back to Key West and visit Chucky again. Oh, I should say Robert. But
wow.
He's a very freaky looking doll. You can Google Robert the doll and see his picture.
Wow, that's extremely, really eerie as well. That's so let me go back to your wife and the covers being pulled over her feet. Now, the door was physically opened. Is that correct?
She said it was open, and she always locks the door. And I don't know. Well, now, okay. She thinks she opened the door. Let's just say that. Marilyn was half asleep when this happened. Now, it's possible she could have passed through the door if she was a ghost. But she did go through the door. Either it was opened or she just went through it. And again, and what's really interesting is that my wife is a retired math teacher, very rational-minded. And I'm the English professor. I'm the one who loves to use my imagination, but she doesn't. She's the one who has these experiences.
Right. That's interesting. She's more, I guess, logical.
Let's take the Myrtles down in St. Francisville, one of the most haunted houses in the United States. We visited there quite a few years ago, and we were sitting outside at night around a fountain having a drink, and she picked up her camera and took a picture of the fountain. And when we looked at it, there was a mist. Oh, probably human size. Well, I immediately grabbed my camera. I took a picture. I got nothing. Same place, same time. I got nothing. So, yeah.
That's located in, is that in Louisiana? Or am I wrong?
St. Francisville, Louisiana.
Okay.
And that is one, I visited a lot of haunted places. I think that place is haunted. I wouldn't say that about very many, but I will say that about the Myrtles.
Yeah, I just pulled up something on it. I'm going to read this to you and see what you think. It says the Myrtles Plantation is a historic home and former antebellum plantation in St. Francisville, Louisiana. It was built in 1796. It is often reported that 10 murders occurred in this house.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't even count the deaths. People who died, like there were 2 children who died of yellow fever there, 2 little girls. That little girl died from being accidentally poisoned. It is not a happy place. It's a bed and breakfast. So if you want a first-hand experience with paranormal, there you go.
Yeah, I don't think I can get my wife on that bandwagon.
That's too bad.
Yeah, I think she would say, if you'd like to visit that, you can visit that on your own, is probably what she would tell me.
My wife and I are celebrating our 50th wedding anniversary next June at the Stanley Hotel, which is where Stephen King wrote The Shining.
Yes.
So we're going there.
Fantastic. That's awesome. 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And we get to go to a very haunted hotel to celebrate it. So that's great.
Yes, that's a legendary movie there, story.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
No doubt. Dr. Brown, let's go back towards your book, Haunted Pensacola, and give us some history of possibly one of the most haunted lighthouses in the United States, and that's the Pensacola Lighthouse.
Yes, 177 steps. And if you walk all the way up at 177 steps to the top, you get a sticker that says, I walked up all 177. I did, but my wife wouldn't. Yeah, it was, well, the first one was built in 1850, but the trees were blocking it, our views, so they rebuilt it in 1853. And they had a special lens called a Fresnel lens that during the Civil War, the Confederacy moved and put a less powerful lens in its place. And lots of stories about it. The one that is repeated the most, I think, has to do with a lighthouse keeper. His name was Jeremiah Ingram. And story goes that in 1840, he and his wife got in an argument in the bedroom, and she stabbed him to death. And there are blood stains on the floor of the bedroom. I've been to the bedroom and I've seen the blood stains. They're there. Now, we've got to ask ourselves, okay, are those blood stains from a murder? Well, not necessarily. During the Civil War, that the lighthouse was used as a field hospital. So, could be that there were operations conducted there. And a woman whose name was Ella, that's all we know, she gave birth in that room. So that it could be blood from that. But there is a large blood stain on the floor. Now, whenever you go to supposedly haunted places, you are going to have stories connected with bloodstains. Always.
Sure. Did she, let me ask you this, Dr. Brown, did she pass away during childbirth, or is that another story?
That might, I don't know. I don't know if she did or not. I don't know that anybody knows that.
Okay.
There's another interesting ghost story connected to a runaway slave who has been seen in the basement in a room under the stairwell there, cowering. When Taps went there, they supposedly got some evidence of a spirit being there in that little room. There was a boy whose name was Hatton, capital Hatten, who lived in the lighthouse with his mother, and he heard footsteps going up and down the wooden stairs in the keeper's quarters at night, and he and his mother were the only ones there. So there are all kinds of stories that people tell about it, and it is one of the most iconic sites in Pensacola. If you go there, be sure to visit the lighthouse. You can also buy my book there because they sell my book there. So
for sure, I would too. There's been lots of paranormal groups that have done shows and from ghost hunters to, like you'd mentioned, Taps at the lighthouse and in various places in Pensacola, right?
Sure. The T.T. Wentworth Museum is really interesting. He was a man who started off with a bicycle shop and then went into real estate. When he was middle-aged, became a millionaire. And then he spent most of his life traveling around collecting things, weird things. And so in 1988, I think it was, they turned the old city hall into the T.T. Wentworth Museum. And there are it's hard to describe everything that's there. Some of it's historical, some of it is child-oriented, and some of it is just plain weird. For example, there is an embalmed cat in the Wentworth Museum, which was found when they raised at an old house that was built in 1850. The cat was caught inside the wall and died. And so they had the mummified cat there, and some people say they feel a cat rubbing against their ankles when they're standing there looking at the mummy. And, there are also stories of volunteers who have been, there's one young lady who was on the second floor, and she said a man ran up the stairwell and ran into a room without opening the door. He passed through it. Volunteers see things there all the time, and that begs the question, do spirits sometimes attach themselves to objects? And I think it's true. My wife has a piano music cabinet that the door opens all the time. And we shut it, and then 2 or 3 days later, it'll open again. And usually it opens when we're there watching it. So that's why I don't like antique stores. I don't know what I'm going to bring home when I go there. Yeah, I certainly think it can happen.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this, Dr. Brown, or mention this to you. And I know we talked about some of your personal experiences. I had one just maybe 12 miles west of Pensacola in Perdido Key this summer, matter of fact. And we were camping in Perdido Key at a campground, and it was probably 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and this bright white light showed up in the sky, and it was tree level height, and probably 400 or 500 yards away, probably, maybe not much more, but it never blinked. It moved laterally, left to right, then right to left. and it disappeared for a second. And I had put the phone down to stop recording. And then all of a sudden the gentleman with me said, "Hey, there it is again." And it came back out and it just sat there, and it was extremely bright. Now, I've seen drones. Of course, I know what helicopters and planes look like in the air, but I have no idea what this was. And it wound up going back to toward the west, which would have been my left, and it just disappeared. And I don't know if you want to call that paranormal or what, but it was, to this day, I do not know what I was watching.
You could do a whole show on ghost lights because they're everywhere. All kinds of stories. They're connected to mountains, to railroad tracks. Pensacola. There is, I should say, an old house called the Axelson House, built of cypress logs, and there is a blue light that is seen inside of it, and it's visible from outside. And during World War II, the police went there to try to tell the owners to turn that light off. Well, they couldn't, because sometimes it comes on and sometimes it doesn't. And if it's paranormal in origin, then there's nothing you can do about it.
Right. I believe that was investigated, and they never found the source of that. Is that correct?
No, they have not found the source of it, and lots of people have seen it. And so not everybody's drunk and not everybody's crazy when they have these experiences. I learned that a long time ago when I started interviewing people.
Yes, totally agree with you. I had another experience as well this summer with lights. I went to North Carolina to a Bigfoot festival in Marion, where we set up a podcast there. And the night before, I've always wanted to go see the Brown Mountain Lights. I don't know. Have you heard of them?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was about a half-hour drive from where I was staying. And I told my wife, I said, should I go up there or not? I'm kind of tired from the drive. She said, I don't know when you're going to be back up there. Just, take off and go, and enjoy it. So I drove up there, and I'm going to be honest with you, I was not expecting to see anything. And a family had pulled up maybe a minute or two after I did at the Brown Mountain overlook on Highway 181. Mm-hmm. And they stayed, I don't know, maybe 15 or 20 minutes possibly. And I don't know if it was just lack of activity, small kids being impatient or whatever. They left. And I almost left a few minutes after they did. And I said, no, I'm going to stick around. And once it got dark across the ridge, I saw a light. And I'm going to say orb or light. And it was not there previously. And it was not a radio tower, because I saw some of the lights from radio towers or cell towers on one part of the ridge. But this light just danced. It's almost like it was entertaining me. It danced around in erratic ways, and it was, with my naked eye, or it had a more of a reddish tint to it, and through my camera, it had a whitish, slightly red tint to it, and it was pixelated somewhat. But I sat there and videoed it for probably 7 to 8 minutes, maybe, off and on. And it was just, there was absolutely no explanation for how it was acting. And I was by myself because that family had left. And I remember during the video, I was talking to I was doing a recording as well. But, I said, I wish somebody was here besides myself to see it. But it was so neat,
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Oh, you mentioned Bigfoot. A month ago, my wife and I went to Gatlinburg, and they have a Bigfoot store in Gatlinburg where you can buy Bigfoot t-shirts and caps and things, and books, but you can also buy surveillance equipment. And I didn't know there was such a thing.
Yes, they have, I guess probably maybe thermal imaging equipment possibly, or night vision. Is that what it was? Or
I think so, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So that just shows how the Bigfoot phenomenon is everywhere. It's in Branson, Missouri. When I was there, they had Bigfoot merchandise. It's just something that people are fascinated by. And so far hasn't been proven or disproven. So I'm glad we still have mysteries like that are still there. You know? And I'll be sad when they finally catch one and put it in a cage and put it on display. Because that mystery will be gone.
Yeah, I think it's the mystery of certain topics or certain things that just keep you wanting more, I guess.
It does, yeah. Want to know more.
Yes. Let me ask you this, Dr. Brown. If you had one of your books to pick as your favorite, which one would it be? I know you've written several.
Yeah, I've actually written around 40. But the one that I really love is Haunted Meridian. That's where I live. And I also dedicated it to my first grandson too. But I interviewed people there all over town. And I used a few secondary sources, but not many. Most of it's interviews, first-person interviews, people who had things happen to them. And I'm very proud of it. And I'd love to do something like that again. I don't know if I'll ever have a chance because I knew a lot of these people already. And they gave me connections with other people. And we live in a time when I think people are more open-minded. The possibility of the existence of different dimensions, different worlds. And it's easier to collect these stories. People aren't as concerned that you're going to make fun of them if they tell you something that happened to them. And these people I interviewed trusted me, and that's why they opened up to me. And I'm just very, very grateful to them for having done that.
Yes, it's really neat to hear people's stories and watch them and listen to them tell them, you know.
Yeah. To watch and listen to them and listen how the tone of their voice changes as they talk about this thing that got closer and closer to them and their eyes get bigger. It's just nothing like it.
Right. And you can tell, when somebody has legitimately seen something or experienced something,
Yes. Yes, I interviewed a lady in the college town where I teach, Livingston, Alabama, who got up in the night to get herself a glass of water, and this amorphous white shape just appeared in front of her. She was so frightened that she was crying over the phone when she talked to me. And I knew something about the house, and so I tried to calm her down. But people who have had these experiences never forget them, and they just become part of them. And this woman, it affected this lady this way.
Yep. Yeah, you can tell. There's no doubt you can tell when somebody is it's organic. It happened,
Yeah, organic's a good way of putting it. It was real.
Well, Dr. Brown, at the end of each episode, we did not do this before. This is something I started a few months back. We do a rapid fire Q&A where we'll ask 3 questions, and it's just the first thing that comes to your mind.
Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Number 1, favorite October or Halloween movie? Halloween. Gotcha.
They're tied.
Yeah, we usually watch Halloween once a year, usually, and it's, of course, around this time, but it's that one there. I think that was in the mid-'70s or late 70s when the first one came out.
Well, I know when it came out. It came out in 1978, and my daughter was born on October 31st, 1978, which is when Halloween takes place, which is another reason why I like that movie so much.
That's pretty neat facts there. All right. Number 2, favorite college football team?
Well, I should say my own college football team, the UWA Tigers, but I graduated from the University of Illinois. So on Saturdays, I watch the U of I games.
Gotcha. I'm fighting Illini.
Unless my brother-in-law is with me, then I have to watch Ole Miss.
Yeah. Okay. Number 3, if you had one place to ghost hunt anywhere, where would it be?
Oh my, there's so many. Well, The Tower of London I've been to the Tower of London. Very haunted place. And I don't know if any formal investigations have ever been done there or not. Now, I have been to the Waverly Hills Tuberculosis Sanitarium. I haven't really conducted an investigation there, but I've walked through it. And I think that place is haunted. I really do. And a lot of people agree with me. Because that is usually number 1 or 2 on people's go-to list for haunted places. That and the Myrtles.
Right.
I'd like to go back to the Myrtles.
Yeah, that seems like that's a go-to place if you want some activity.
If you want yes. Oh, we went out to eat and came back. We had locked the door, came back, and the toilet paper was all unrolled from the toilet paper roll. And one of the ladies in the gift shop said that happens in that room a lot.
So y'all were not the first to report that, Dan.
Oh, no.
So neat. Well, Dr. Brown, thank you so much for coming back on the show for our second episode and for our first, I guess, 1-year anniversary. I guess you could say that.
Well, I really appreciate you having me back, and I also am a big fan of shows like yours that are pushing the boundaries and trying to get people out of their comfort zone and think about the possibilities of this life in this area. Yeah.
Yes, I like to hear stuff, history and love hearing people's stories as well.
Oh, me too. Yeah.
Really do. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, well, I did too. Thank you very much.
Yes, absolutely. And would love to have you back on. I tell you what, if you go on your 50th anniversary and have some activity, we need to stay in touch. Let me know.
Okay.
Maybe you can have a story for us.
I hope we do.
And for the listeners, if you've had an encounter, something strange or unexplained, click on our link tree in the description and share your encounter. Thank you for listening to the Cryptid Crew Podcast, and God bless.